Welcome to the Retire with Peace podcast, the podcast where we help you create a fulfilling and stress-free retirement. Each week, we bring you expert advice, practical tips, and inspiring stories to help you plan and live your best retirement life. Whether you're nearing retirement or already enjoying your golden years, this podcast is here to support you every step of the way. Let's embark on this journey together and discover how to retire with peace.
We are excited to be joined today by Chelsea Theodoropoulos, the owner of Burn Boot Camp St. Louis. Welcome, Chelsea.
Thank you very much, Dave, and good pronunciation of my last name.
That's right. It's a tough one, but you can get used to it. You hear it often enough. Yeah, I've been hearing it for 4 years, so I'm used to it.
I love it.
So for those of you who are listening or watching this on YouTube, I have been a member of Burn Boot Camp St. Louis for over 4 years now, so very familiar with the awesome work that Chelsea and her team have been doing. But I don't want to steal your thunder. I'd love to hear your story. How'd you get to where you are now? Because I know it was quite a journey to becoming a Burn Boot Camp owner, and an exciting 5 years now since that time.
Yeah, it's been 5 years now. So it has absolutely been a journey, one that I wouldn't trade for anything. I started off so obviously I'm living here in St. Louis now. I've been here for just over 5 years. I moved here in October of 2017. And in 2015, I was living in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I had been living for close to 15 years. I had my husband and my 2 small children, was raising a family there. And I was in kind of a funk in my own life, right? Like adjusting to my new roles of being a wife and adjusting to motherhood. And my husband's mother-in-law was terminally ill, and she had moved in with us. So I was also adjusting to this new role of being her primary caretaker, all while doing all of the other roles and working for my husband and his small business. And so I joined our local neighborhood gym, which was just around the corner. And our local neighborhood gym, I was living in the suburbs of Charlotte. It was nothing fancy, although I look back and it was absolutely perfect. It was Burn Boot Camp, and it was long before they started licensing and franchising. It was just a very special place where our community got together, and truly it changed my life. It changed my life from the inside out. So I started off as a member in 2015. And when I joined just after my second child was born. And I was committed to losing the last of my baby weight. That was like my only focus of, if I could just lose my baby weight, then I'll be happy. It was kind of the mentality that I had. And what's interesting is I hear that so much now. And a lot of times we join gyms for those physical gains or losses, right? In that regard. Mm-hmm. But what I have gained as a result is so much more. And so I had joined the Burn Boot Camp community, and my first day was incredibly difficult. It was nothing but burpees. It feels like, I'm pretty sure we did burpees for 45 minutes straight. That's all I remember is just burpees upon burpees. And I remember these women, at that point we were the fit community of moms. So it was even more of a focus on the female and on the mother. And whereas now we have many, many more co-ed camps, and there's a focus more on families. And so, my first day, I remember these women were just jumping around me left and right, and I couldn't fathom how they were moving their bodies so fast.
Yes.
Can you relate to that?
Very much. And to see what you all can do now is extraordinary.
Yeah, it was just, I was so impressed, and I was so inspired. There was truly no room for me to even be jealous, because they were so kind and they were high-fiving me left and right, and they were cheering for me, that I couldn't even be upset or jealous. I was only inspired. And so I just kept showing up, and I started to, I lost the baby weight and all of that, but at that point, that was such a distant goal that I had. I had gained so much more, the strength within me and the confidence within me. And when I started franchising, I jumped on the opportunity, although it took us a while to really get to that place. A lot of soul searching. It was a huge change in direction for my family, and it a little bit came from left field as far as getting our minds wrapped around it. And what this would mean for our family. So, like I mentioned, my husband's been an entrepreneur his entire life, basically. When he was 20, he started his own collection agency, and he's had multiple businesses since then. And I've learned a lot from him. And my father was also an entrepreneur, and being in the passenger seats of both my husband and my dad, I've seen all the struggles and all of the blood, sweat, and tears that they've poured into their businesses, but I've also seen the rewards of their freedom and how much joy they felt. And so when I first mentioned to Ted, I think that we should buy into the Burn Boot Camp franchise, he thought I was crazy. Truly thought I was crazy. And, at this point, he was waking up with chest pains in the middle of the night, and he had migraines throughout the week. Like, essentially, it felt like we were waiting for a heart attack to happen. Like, he was so at the peak of his entrepreneurial stress, and he was unwell, that taking on more responsibility and more work was probably a really terrible idea. So he was like, "You've lost your mind." Absolutely not. And I was like, fair. Totally fair.
Yeah.
So I think for us, the breaking point, or I guess the switch for us, was when his mother had moved in. She had pulmonary fibrosis. She was tied to her oxygen machine 15 feet. She could never leave her bedroom. She was that dependent on the care that she had. She wasn't very mobile at all. And so when she passed away, and we had unplugged, I remember so vividly, we had unplugged the oxygen machine, and it was like, we were so used to hearing that hum throughout our house, like that background. And we had unplugged the oxygen machine, and like our house just felt so different. There was something missing, and it was like the stark reminder of life is too precious, right? Life is too precious. So that day we got in the car, we drove to Disney World. We were very spontaneous. We said, screw it. Let's just live life to the fullest. And not long after that, about a month later, we decided to buy into the franchise. And we said, if we're going to be working this hard and hustling this hard and grinding this hard, we might as well do it for impact. And so it gave us a good reminder that life is short, and we're not here to wake up with chest pains. We're here to really live in a powerful, bold way for impact. And so here I am.
Yeah. And you're making a huge impact. And I can attest to that. Seeing that personally, it's been an amazing impact. Now, when you signed up, you said you signed on a franchise. Did you know at that point where you were going? Did you know you were coming to St. Louis? Because I know you had never been here.
That's right. Yeah.
Signing up here.
Yeah, that's right. So we did do quite a bit of market research beforehand. When we decided to buy into the Burn Boot Camp franchise, we didn't know where it was going to be. And initially, we just assumed that it would be in our own backyard in North Carolina. That would be, easy to find a location near us. And that wasn't the case. Burn Boot Camp was exploding. They were doing so well. And essentially the entire East Coast was sold. And so I was like, oh gosh, okay.
Wow.
I didn't realize that North Carolina was sold. So I was like, let's look at my hometown of Rochester, New York. That was sold. We looked at his hometown in Florida. That was sold. So we were kind of running out of pockets and areas to open. We did look at some areas in Atlanta, and it didn't feel right for different reasons. And we knew that we wanted to do it in a big way. So like in Atlanta, there was only one zip code that was available at that time.
Wow.
So we ended up studying the demographics of Huntersville, which is where we live in Charlotte. And we took that, and my husband he loved this kind of work. He was a big So he took the demographics and he applied them across the United States, and he looked to see what other markets mirrored the same demographics of Huntersville. Now, mind you, the franchise in and of itself was still really young. So there wasn't a whole lot of data that we could go upon or historic. So we looked at the top trending locations, and that was the best that we had. And so it was the suburbs of Chicago, Phoenix, and St. Louis. Those three markets popped.
Sure.
And so Chicago scared us a little bit just because of the taxes, and Phoenix felt too far.
Yeah.
And we're like, let's fly to St. Louis, see how it is. It was a quick flight, like an hour and 20 minutes. We had never been here before. And as soon as we landed, I knew in my heart it just felt right. I really did.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, I really did. Between having the numbers validated as far as the market research, and then just my own intuition, having those two together, there was something really special about, I just remember like going into the grocery store and to the gas station and how kind everybody was. And it seems so silly, but it really made a difference for me. It really, really did. And how humble everybody was and how kind everybody was. And it reminded me a lot of my own hometown. So anyhow, that's where we are. And we spent days and days. And I think we came initially for a weekend, and we just drove up and down all the streets trying to get to know the city and, visualize our life here and looking for different commercial properties that could be a viable option. And so at that point, once we had an idea that St. Louis was the market, we didn't quite know where in St. Louis, but we knew St. Louis was the market. Then we went back and said, okay, we'll sign the dotted line. We're ready to move forward.
Yeah. And you've talked about how supportive everybody was at your gym back home in North Carolina, where it all kind of first started. Yeah. And then how you came to St. Louis and thought everybody's so nice here. Yeah. And so to hear those things and to see what you've developed now with all the team that you've hired and the community that you've built in St. Louis, it sounds like that just was a natural flow from where you came from and now finding it here and building that in St. Louis.
Yeah, absolutely. And being at the very first location, I truly consider to be such a privilege and an honor, because I was able to see firsthand and feel firsthand the vision that Devin Klein, the founder of Burn Boot Camp, and his wife, Morgan, I was able to feel that vision come alive, right? And so being under his wing, he was my head trainer when I was there. And I essentially, when I became a trainer, I trained under him. And so I knew exactly what his vision was. And so when I moved to St. Louis, there was a sense of comfort of, I can do this because I know exactly what it looks like.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And you built up 4 gyms to this point and a 5th one coming. And you guys, you and many of your team members and the different gyms have won a crazy number of awards. It just seems like every year it's another award for outstanding growth or outstanding training, or I can't even name all the awards. You can probably name them all, but just it seems like we turn around and every time you guys have another award for just outstanding work, outstanding community, everything.
Yeah, we do, and I appreciate that, and I'm so grateful for the recognition and the awards and the accolades. But I will say that while it is all very special, when I see a burn magnet on the back of somebody's car when I'm driving to Target or when I'm driving to Whole Foods, that means just as much, if not more, than all of the accolades that we've accumulated. I genuinely mean that. I mean, when I see somebody's magnet on the back of their car, it just lights up my world. And my focus over the past 5 years hasn't been chasing these awards. It hasn't been chasing the accolades. And it honestly hasn't been to the degree of gym goals. My gym goals are very, very crystal clear, and I know exactly where I'm trying to go. But I'll say that my focus has largely been in part building my teams, and the gym goals that we've been able to reach has naturally followed as a result of that. And then with that, the accolades and all of that has followed. But I learned pretty early on that I can't do any of this alone. And not only am I only one person, but I don't have the skills to do it all alone. And I need a lot of people to help me. And so my team is everything, truly.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great team too. And what fascinates me also is that you talked about the transition of Burn from more focused on moms, which is still a heavy emphasis.
Yeah. Totally.
But now it's broadened out to families, and I see a lot of people who are more advanced in age coming in, and I love seeing people just develop no matter where they've started. And there's even an older lady, I won't mention her name, but she's in our gym and I work out with her sometimes. And I remember her starting, gosh, it's probably been about 10 months or so now. And when she was starting out, she couldn't really do much of the exercises. And so she would be back on the ropes, lifting stuff. She started with the light ones and moved up to the heavy ones. And one day, all of a sudden, we were doing arm raises, and she's got weights in her hand. Everybody kind of stopped and went, "Wow, you're doing it. You're lifting weights." And so and we see that at all ages, right? It just starts from a certain spot, and then all of a sudden you look over and you go, "Oh, okay, you got it."
It is like the most beautiful thing. And that progression of somebody's journey is why I do what I do. It's so incredibly rewarding to see people feel so empowered in what they can do. and not be so frustrated in what they can't do yet. Right. And so, yeah, I mean, that's what we're all about. And I think that's truly what makes us, one reason why we are so special is because we meet each person where they are, and we're not comparing one person's journey to the other person's journey, because we all have very different starting points.
Absolutely.
So it's like that relationship, getting to know where that person is currently, where have they been, where are they trying to go? And then right there, we meet them where they are. And then it gets relatively challenging from there, right? Like we will always be intense. That is who we are. We will always be intense, but it is intense to each person's skill level.
Absolutely.
That makes sense?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. And I know a lot of people who are listening to this podcast or watching this video, it's more focused on retiring with confidence. And I wanted to bring you in to talk about staying healthy as you get older, because there will be times where you can't do certain things. And I can attest to that. And really everybody, even if you're not as advanced in age, you might come down with an injury. You can't do certain things, but you still want to stay moving. You still want to stay active. Yeah. Can you speak to, all right, how as you get a little bit older and maybe can't do what you used to do per se, what can you do to stay healthy? How can you stay active? What are some of the keys? Yeah,
I would say, so we have a large population of women and men who are at retirement age. And well, I would actually say that we probably 25 to 65, everywhere in between there, right? But we have a large population of people that are at retirement age. And one of the things that I hear the most, mostly from women, is that it's this mindset of comparison, and not comparison to the 30-year-old person next to them. It's the comparison that we have to the person we were 30 years ago, or the person we were 20 years ago. And it's so hard. It really is. It is overcoming that self-doubt and overcoming that negative mindset of, well, I used to be able to do this and now I can't. And so now I'm failing. And so we work a lot with everybody to try and flip that mindset of, you can't compare yourself to 20 years ago or 10 years ago, or even really yesterday.
Right.
You have to compare yourself to this present moment, and you have to focus on what you can do. And so it's all about reinforcing those positive thoughts of what a gift it is. And I remind, whenever I train, if you pay attention, you listen, I almost start every single camp talking about what a gift it is that we're here and we're moving our body, and what a great day it is that we're alive. Yeah, and that's truly the mindset that I want to bring to people, that sure, we're going to have bad days, and sure, we're going to have aches and pains. But the reality is we woke up today and we're already winning. So let's make it the best that we possibly can. And so for people that are experiencing their body aging, what a gift that is, because not everybody has the opportunity to experience that age.
Yes.
And it's a total mind shift. But, my dad has always told me, never stop moving, Chelsea, never stop moving. And my dad's been very, very active his entire life. He was very big into karate and black belt and all that. And
wow.
He's a beast in my eyes, especially. He's high on a pedestal, but he's always been active his entire life. And he has noticed, I've seen it with him too. He's now 71. I've seen it with him, of him knowing where he used to be. And he's like, well, I can't do that anymore. And like, his mind is spinning, because he's comparing himself to where he used to be. And so trying to also flip his mindset of, but look at all the things that you can do. And so he's always told me to never stop moving. He used to pride himself off doing handstands. And he used to love doing the walking handstands. And he's like, I wish I didn't stop doing that, because I'd probably still be able to do it today. So it's just interesting, to see how the journey of aging, how challenging it is. And I haven't experienced that at retirement age yet, but I've experienced my own version of that as I've gone through motherhood, and I see how my body has changed through motherhood. Right. And so as I work with women and men to help flip that mindset, it's really paying attention to the positive of what we can do, and to stay active, even if it looks different than how we were active a year ago or how we were active 10 years ago. That maybe you're not jumping around doing burpees and all of that. And that's okay. You don't have to do that to be successful. You can still do other forms of exercise. You can still do other modifications and movements to be healthy.
Great. Yeah. And I know on top of that, you guys always talk a lot about nutrition.
Yes.
And not in terms of being like super strict or
Nope.
overly restrictive or depriving yourself.
Nope.
But I know that staying active, especially as you get a little bit older, nutrition is going to play a huge part in that. Can you talk a little bit to that?
Yeah, it plays a huge part in it. And you're absolutely right that I will never preach depriving anything out of our life, because I think if you can't do it forever, then you're setting yourself up for failure. And our goal is long-term success, right? Something that's sustainable over time. So when we can focus on the education piece of why are we eating, or let's take a step back, when we can really focus on our own intuition and say, what foods make me feel really good? And then understand the education behind that of this is the importance of protein. This is the importance of fats and carbs. When we have that education, we can then start to reach our fitness goals, which are very important to us. And our goals may look different again than how they did 5 years ago, but that nutrition piece is a huge part of it, that we could work out. Nobody wants to, but we could work out 10 hours a day.
Right.
But if we're not eating well, we're still going to have a really hard time reaching those fitness goals. And so that nutrition piece far outweighs the exercise piece, that both are so incredibly important. And when people come into the gym, they're only with me for 45 minutes.
Yes.
Right? What they do outside of camp that's a lot of time to make those decisions. And so it's our job to help teach our members how to eat in a way that fuels them for their own energy, but also for their own goals.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I know from experience that the people that come into the gym overall, not everybody, but overall, they tend to be more, I would say, achievement focused. So very hard workers, very driven.
Yeah.
They speak to the need for rest and recovery along with the workouts and the nutrition, because that seems like kind of the third leg of the stool that really keeps everything balanced.
It's a huge piece of it. Which is why we're closed on Sundays, because it is forced recovery. Because I know darn well that if we open up on Sunday, you all will come to the gym and work out. I know that you would. So yeah, I mean, the recovery piece is so important. That is when your body, when you're resting and you're sleeping, that is when your body is building that muscle and it has the chance to recover, to get stronger and to heal. And so the recovery piece is so incredibly important. Between working out, you're tearing apart those muscle fibers. You have the food, you have the protein, you have the vitamins, you have the hydration that's helping to build it up. And then the recovery piece is when all the magic happens that we often take for granted. And we get into what I've also seen a lot and heard a lot is we become addicted to the grind. We become addicted to the exercise. And that's a great problem to have, right? Because the people, those that are on the sofa that don't want to work out, they probably wish they felt that way. But the flip side to that is when you become so addicted to the exercise because it feels really, really good and we're seeing results and we have all the happy vibes that are flowing. It takes away at times from our ability to recover. And the more that we are over exercising, in a sense, we become more at risk for injury, which becomes even more important for those that are of retirement age, because we're going to start to see that decrease in bone density and we become more at risk for falling and things of that nature. And so it does become really important that we're taking the time to rest, to allow our bodies to properly heal and build that muscle, because the more lean muscle mass we have, the better we're able to support our body so we don't fall and we don't have those injuries and risks.
Great. No, it's all great stuff. You guys really have a good program going. I'm curious for those listening, how does Burn Bootcamp specifically help with all that? We've talked a lot about what Burn Bootcamp can do, but I wanted to tie it all together in terms of what does it look like, I guess, for a workout. You said it's 45 minutes. Is it, do people usually do it once a day, every day? Is it more a couple of times a week? Does it depend on, people's lifestyle? What does it look like in terms of helping somebody who is looking towards retirement or of that age? What does it look like for Burn Bootcamp to help them?
Everybody is different. There's no one box fits all. I mean, everybody is different. And I would first want to understand what that person's goals are. Where are they starting from? and go from there, right? So everything that we do is we want to place discomfort on that person. We want to place the load of discomfort on that person because that's what creates change. But one person's discomfort may look very different than somebody else's discomfort. And so for some people, coming in once or twice a week is what they have, and that's fantastic. For other people, they could probably start at 4 to 5 times a week, and that's great too. It really does depend. I know that they say, 150 minutes a week for exercise, which is about 30 minutes a day, 5 days out of the week. And that's great. Like using that as a goal is a great goal. I think a lot of times though, when we have that, we're striving for it and we're not there on day one, we feel like we've failed already.
Right.
You know, and so it's having grace. It's this balancing act of having grace within ourselves to be realistic of what am I capable of in this moment? What are some realistic goals that I have? And more importantly than the goals, what are the systems that I have in place to reach my goals?
Sure.
Right? Because a lot of times we have these big audacious goals, but if we're not setting ourselves up for success by having the habits and the routines and the systems to get there, then we're going to question everything and we're going to quit before we ever see results.
Absolutely. And you talked about getting to know who that person is and what they want to get out of it. Talk a little bit about the focus meetings. So I know that's a big part of what you guys do.
Yeah, these focus meetings are great. And even for myself, I swear I've probably had hundreds of them. They really have changed my life. And every time that I've had a focus meeting with my own trainer back in Charlotte, I learned something new. For me, it was all education based, that I would have a nugget of education that I would walk away and it would give me more fodder in a sense to execute and apply, because now I understood why am I being asked to drink all this water? Why am I being asked to eat all this protein, right?
Yes.
Why am I doing burpees in the first place? And so the focus meetings are really important because it is time with the personal trainer and a member, and they're for 15 minutes. They can happen as much as the member would like. I mean, they could have them weekly if you wanted to. We recommend about every 3 to 4 weeks, because if somebody is tracking numbers, you'll see movement patterns every 3 to 4 weeks or so. Focus meetings can be anywhere from tracking body diagnostics, which we have an in-body machine. So an in-body machine will tell you body fat percentage, your overall muscle, your lean muscle mass, hydration, things like that. And for a lot of people need those numbers to see that progress, and that's great. We also talk about nutrition. We talk about different recipe swaps. We talk about different habits for implementing healthy nutrition and a lot of education-based nutrition, things of that nature. And then sometimes somebody will come into a focus meeting and they're just feeling down. They just need a pep talk. And so we have a pep talk. And so this time is really meant for that relationship to be built so we can understand what this person's goals are, how we can best support them as their trainer. And then when we get onto the floor, the way that we motivate them, the way that we challenge them is going to be unique for each individual person, right? Like the way the words that I use and the cues that I use on the mic for one person, I may say very intentionally for one person who likes to be motivated in one specific way versus somebody else. It's very, very intentional. And so we start to learn as trainers what each person needs and how we can help them reach their goals, is because their results is our success, right? We want that person to reach their goals, and more than reaching their goals, we want them to feel really, really good. So the focus meetings is a great gateway to get there, because that relationship is everything to know how to do so.
Yeah. And I know one of the beauties of the trainers getting to know the people there is that really the only responsibility, I'll say, that the members have is to show up. And I think that's one of the benefits, is that you don't have to think about what you need to do that day. You just need to show up. And that's, once you're there, you can get into it.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of times, maybe you feel sore, or maybe you feel tired. And then there are days, like you said, that you just need to rest.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, even if you don't want to go, you just need to show up. And once you're there, it just goes. And I think that's one of the benefits of the trainers knowing you.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Dave. I mean, showing up truly is the hardest part. And so if somebody can just show up, which is hard in and of itself, The rest, I mean, yeah, the workout is hard, but
Yes.
showing up mentally is really, really tough. And of course, there's days that I show up and my headspace is somewhere else. But because I have a trainer that is like, do this now, go,
Yes.
you know, it allows me to go through the motions to get to a place that I got my workout in, which I know in 45 minutes, I'm going to feel so much better. And even though if sometimes my head and my heart are not in it in that moment, I always feel better on the back end.
Absolutely.
Always.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's that confidence piece that I think is so important for so many of us, whether somebody is 55, 65, or 25, being able to be active and be in a workout environment that truly is empowering, that allows you to be uncomfortable, that allows you to have these micro failures. Because when you're having these micro failures and you overcome them, you build confidence over time, right? And so I think that piece of it, no matter how old you are, that translates to fulfillment and happiness and new opportunities. And, you know, like I mentioned my father, as I've seen him go through retirement, he's been active his entire life. When he retired, he had his own business. When he retired, he lost a piece of himself in a big way. He really did. And I saw him go through that, where he felt like he had lost his identity. And because he was able to anchor himself in fitness and the things that he knows bring him joy, he was able to transition into this new season of life better.
Great. That's fantastic.
Yeah. It makes me so proud of him. And also for those that are also struggling, that there's such an opportunity to get out of that funk. Because the reality is that we look at our retirement years of the best years of our life. We worked so hard and now it's time to enjoy them. And it's hard to enjoy them because we're stuck in this identity crisis in a way. And being active and also I would say with Burn is having that sense of camaraderie, having this built-in community and this sense of belonging brings new purpose to this new season of life. Yeah,
absolutely. I think you hit the nail right on the head. It is a huge transition to go from work, whatever that is to you, into retirement. And you do lose a bit of that identity. So if you don't have something else, like you said, to anchor yourself, it can be a tough switch. So having that anchor and having good health is a big, big difference in terms of how well you transition mentally into retirement.
Yeah. And plus, I mean, the stronger your body is, again, like I mentioned, you're going to be at less risk of hurting yourself, having an injury, falling, but then you can experience life more to your fullest. It's like we have these dreams of when we retire, we're going to go travel and do this or whatever it is and have all these experiences because we have all this time. But if you don't have the energy and the endurance and the strength to go do these experiences, you're selling yourself short. You're selling your life short in a sense that you're holding yourself back. And so I'm a big, big believer of living boldly and how our energy is the gateway to doing that. And so obviously fitness is a huge part of that and in creating more energy, both physically, but also mentally, having the mental fortitude to do that.
Absolutely. Well, great. That's awesome. As we wrap up here, is there anything that you want to share? Any final thoughts on Burn or just specific, maybe one action step that people should take if they're wanting to join Burn or if they're thinking about it? What should they do? What should they be thinking about?
Oh, good question. So, I hear a lot how scary and how intimidating Burn Boot Camp is, and it sounds intimidating because it's boot camp in our name.
Yes.
And I get that. I want to assure you, or the person who is listening, that it is not scary, that we are the biggest, friendliest group of people, and that when you come in, we take you into our arms, and you're going to get a lot of high fives. And it's such a supportive community that if you can overcome that initial fear of walking into the doors, your anxiety and the intimidation level will melt, because that is what we are trained to do. And that is what we live for. And that's what we talk about all the time, of how do we ease that anxiety so you can give us the opportunity to truly transform your life. And so we do have a 7-day trial always that happens, and it's free. There's no obligation. There's no gimmicks. But the reason why we do that is because we want to see if Burn Boot Camp is the right fit for you. There's tons of great gyms in the area. I'm friends with a lot of the other gym owners, and I have a lot of respect for the other gyms. And so I'm a firm believer that whether it's Burn Boot Camp or somebody else, now I'm biased. I think that we're the best, but I have a lot of respect for the other gyms, of course. I'm a firm believer that when you enjoy the style of fitness and you enjoy the people that you're surrounded by, then you're going to stick with it, right? And if you're not sticking with something, it's not because you're a failure. It's because you haven't found what works for you yet. And so I would say just keep trying, show up, take advantage of the 7-day trial, and allow the opportunity to work in your favor.
That's awesome. Well, Chelsea, thank you so much for joining us. This was a great discussion, and I think listeners will get a lot out of it. And really appreciate you helping us out and joining us on this podcast.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode. I really appreciate your support and hope you found value in the conversation. If you enjoyed it, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who might benefit from it. Your feedback helps keep the show growing. Until next time, take care and stay strong as we learn to retire with peace.